If you ask somebody how to learn to speak a language without actually talking to somebody, you're probably gonna get laughed at. Sounds like a silly question, I know, but there are ways to do it. Let's talk about ways to learn how to speak a language without actually having a conversation with somebody. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video about language learning tips and advice. If this is your first time on my channel, hi, my name is Jamie. I'm a language coach and I specialize in helping independent language learners get past their obstacles and understand language learning from a realistic, down-to-earth perspective. There are a bunch of reasons why you may want to learn to speak a language without actually having a conversation with somebody, and the reason why you don't want to have a conversation is going to dictate what you should be doing to not have that conversation. The most common reason I hear from language learners who don't want to speak a language is because of fear. Like they're afraid that they're not fluent enough, they're afraid that they're going to make mistakes, they're afraid that there's too much pressure, things like that. Totally hear you, that's totally valid. I totally get it 100%. In response to that, I would say that you need a mindset shift, and that takes some work to, get through, which is why it's the first thing that I teach my clients, how to take a hard look at your mindsets and kind of shift them to something that will actually benefit you in your language learning. But at the end of the day, we are all our own worst critics, and we will generally think more highly of somebody else doing the same thing that we don't think we're doing well. Basically, when you think of the word fluent, which is very vague and I hate to use that word, and you look at somebody else speaking a language, the bar is pretty low to acknowledge, hey, you're fluent, cool, that's awesome, I could understand you, you made sense, you're good to go. But as soon as you, on the other hand, make a simple mistake, get a conjugation wrong, lose your words, have to stop and think about what it is that you want to say, you'll automatically think, wow, I suck, I'm not good at this, I'm not fluent, they're gonna laugh at me, it's gonna be a terrible experience. That's definitely a mindset thing to be worked on. It's not really a skill thing at that point, learning to be less critical of yourself, less judgmental of yourself, and more accepting of nobody's perfect. And with that kind of mindset, you're just holding yourself back. The second most common reason I hear from language learners is that they want to be able to speak a language, but when they get to a conversation or they're prompted to speak, their mind just goes blank and it makes them really nervous. They don't want to put themselves in a vulnerable situation when they can predict that their brain's just not going to be there for you. And generally those language learners, they've spent a lot of time learning languages passively, which means that they have spent a lot of time learning to understand the language, read the language, things like that, which are totally valid. But then when it comes to speaking the language, they just kind of fizzle up and they're confused as to why, they go through all these flashcards and they have all these, words memorized, kind of understand perfectly fine, but they can't speak. Speaking is its own skill. Your understanding of the language and your ability to read it will help your ability to speak, but if you want to speak the language, you have to speak it. So my recommendation, what you're doing right now to learn your language is working for you, except that you're not getting any practice speaking. If you're like using flashcards or something, I would recommend, keep reading, keep listening, but then say the things. So if you love reading books and you're picking up a lot of vocabulary that way, just read them out loud to yourself as you read. It seems like a small thing and it's not an actual conversation, but it definitely is a next step forward to getting used to saying the words, feeling them in your mouth, getting the pronunciation, just really just getting used to using your mouth and building that pathway between your brain where the vocabulary and the language is held and getting it out of your mouth. That's really great first step. And then as you get comfortable, you'll find yourself feeling more confident in being able to have a conversation. But it's just kind of like a little step up instead of throwing yourself into a situation where you're gonna be really, really uncomfortable. Another reason why some people want to practice speaking without having a conversation is that they've been burned by language exchange partners. Language exchanges are a really great way to get in your speaking practice because it's totally free and you're exchanging your language, your native language for the foreign language, which is excellent, except it's not always as easy as it sounds. I mean, think of it this way. If you are gonna go to the store and approach a random person there is a chance that you will get along and there's a chance that you won't get along, right? There's a chance that you will really thrive off a conversation with this person, have a lot in common, have a lot to talk about. And there's also a chance that you don't want to talk to this person, you find them boring or annoying or whatever. It's the same thing with language exchanges. It can take a long time to find a language exchange partner that you really jive well with and you really enjoy their company, and they'll, show up regularly. Because one of the things that I found with language exchanges is, they're free, which is awesome, but because they're free, there is like zero accountability for them to show up. So I've been ghosted a lot by language partners. But the basic idea is that if you've been burned by that, try and lower your standards a little bit and not expect every language exchange partner to be like a perfect match. It's kind of like dating and language learning, which is why women get hit on a lot on language exchange apps like Tandem and HelloTalk. That's kind of why. It takes some experimenting to find some people who you will want to talk to consistently long term. And you really just have to prepare yourself for that emotionally. Another reason why language learners are afraid to get themselves into a conversation, whether it be with language exchanges, language partners, or with paid tutors, is that they're afraid of the subject matter. And by that I mean, the anxiety of like not knowing what it is you're going to talk about, not knowing if you're going to be able to talk about it, not knowing, if you're going to talk about something like religion, for example, not knowing what the other person is like, if you're going to offend them. And there's a whole lot of anxiety over what are we going to talk about? Like if we're going to be talking about like something in the past, am I comfortable enough with the past tense? Do I know past tense verbs? Am I going to feel really insecure about my ability to talk about this thing? Do I have the right vocabulary for this particular subject? Or are we just going to have the same boring conversation over and over about my name, where I'm from, why I'm learning this language? I would say just to take control of the conversation. This can be done in a couple of ways. If you have a conversation partner, then literally just take control of the conversation. I mean, a big part of getting to know conversation partners is getting a feel of the energy between the two of you. Who's gonna lead more conversations, who's just gonna follow. And you can really kind of take advantage of that opportunity to start the conversation saying, hey, I like sports, and then start talking about sports, right? Just taking control of that conversation and leading the conversation and allow your conversation partner to follow. Depending on, you and your personality, that might be more or less comfortable. This is a lot easier done with tutors, paid tutors. If you have a tutor that you meet with once a week, twice a week, whatever, you can totally have a relationship where you send your tutor news articles that you'd like to talk about, or you send them a YouTube video that you'd like to talk about discussing that particular subject. This can really give you some more confidence about knowing what it is you're gonna have a conversation about, what vocabulary you need to brush up on, any grammatical points that you wanna be confident in. You can definitely prepare with some other media relating to it. Like if you wanna talk about tennis, you can, watch some YouTube videos about tennis in your target language, build up your existence in that sphere of the language, and really just get yourself set to set your expectations, know what's gonna happen, and be in a place where you're comfortable talking about the thing freely. If you can relate to any of these fears and anxieties about learning to speak in a foreign language, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what's really your biggest obstacle in practicing your speaking, because speaking can be real scary. The next reason why speaking in a foreign language may be difficult for you is you're introverted. I'm an introvert. I'm totally 100%. I get exhausted having conversations in my native language. Add the foreign language I'm not as comfortable with to that mix, and it's absolutely exhausting. And I definitely struggle with that as well. But if you want to specifically improve your speaking practice without it being nearly as exhausting as the whole, there's another person there and all of that stress, I would definitely recommend talking to yourself. Recording yourself talking. The 30-day speaking challenge is great for that. 30 days of talking about a certain topic. You don't even have to post it anywhere. It can just speak for yourself. But I mean, there's so many different ways to practice speaking without actually having to be having a conversation with somebody. You can essentially control the situation, which can be really comforting, both for anxious people and for introverts. I am both those things, so I totally get it. And the next reason why speaking the language might be difficult is because the pronunciation is really difficult. You're not really comfortable with the pronunciation yet. You have a really hard time like creating the shapes in your mouth, because that's what, you know, when you're speaking a foreign language, it's not just new vocabulary, it's also new sounds. Depending on how important pronunciation is to you, in my opinion, it should be at least reasonably important, but you know, I digress. Pronunciation is all about creating different sounds in your mouth that you're not used to creating, which can be really difficult. So if you're nervous about the pronunciation and you're like nervous about speaking because your pronunciation isn't up to a level where you would feel comfortable, it's kind of like an endless cycle, right? My pronunciation sucks because I haven't practiced pronouncing, so I could speak to practice my pronunciation, but I'm afraid to speak because my pronunciation sucks. It's just like, it kind of sucks. But there's a solution. Chatbots. There are tons of resources out there. There's Speakly, there's Mondly, off the top of my head. Chatbots can be a feature of language learning apps where, you know, you're given something to say and you record yourself saying it, and the computer, the app, the technology, whatever it is, decides whether or not you're pronouncing the thing like well enough for it to understand you. And it's literally just you and your phone, so you can really get used to saying the things and then hearing the app say it back to you, so you can really match up your pronunciation with the audio that you're hearing. Shadowing is also good for that. Shadowing is when you're listening to an audio over and over again, and then you repeat it so that the words you're saying match up with the audio that you're hearing. Those are two excellent ways of improving pronunciation, specifically if pronunciation or lack thereof is what's holding you back from feeling confident in your conversation skills. And last but not least, the final reason why you may not want to practice speaking in a conversation is because you don't want to speak it. I find this happens a lot in language learners. Depending on the language and depending on the person, obviously, they might not actually want to speak the language, but because of the way that, you know, language learning is, everybody just kind of automatically goes to speaking the language. Speaking the language is only one skill. There are 3 other skills. So if you don't want to speak the language, that's totally valid. You don't need to force yourself to use the language and enjoy the language in a way that doesn't actually work for you. If you just want to watch movies, if you just want to read books, if you just want to like write in a journal but you don't actually want to speak, that's totally fine. Drop the speaking. Don't worry about it. Don't make yourself do something that you don't actually want to do, because if you do that, you won't actually be able to enjoy the language, you won't be able to stick to it, and there goes that endless cycle of wanting to learn a language but then not liking the process, being mad at yourself, feeling guilty for not, you know, studying every day like you're supposed to, and all that good stuff. If you don't actually want to speak the language, don't feel obligated. You do not need to feel obligated to use the language in ways that don't make you happy. Moral of the story is, if you want to practice speaking the language, but you don't actually want to practice having a conversation or speaking with a person, I can almost guarantee that either I have personally experienced that or I have helped a client get past that same very thing. If you want to learn more about how I do that, click the link below in the description for my free training where I talk about my approach and how I teach language learning clients to get past their obstacles, learn how to learn a language in a way that makes sense for them. And of course, this is a very important thing, if you want to get a realistic idea of what it's like for somebody to speak a language, because that can be hard. Perfect quotes, perfect speaking in a foreign language is really easy to find on the internet, especially when you don't know the language. It's not easy to find a realistic example of somebody speaking a foreign language. This video right here, I did totally in Spanish, and it ain't perfect, not even close. So if you want a realistic example of what it's like when you're speaking a language, check that out. I hope it makes you feel better about yourself and allows you to lower your expectations of yourself a little bit. Otherwise, have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.